Today on First Financial Biz Beat, a fading star.
It's a bit of a blow to the image of Cincinnati.
How the loss of the Macy's headquarters downtown will have a ripple effect throughout Cincinnati. A former Bengal can now call himself an Oscar winner.
I had to make a selfish decision, but this selfish decision was what was right for my family.
And selfishly, what's right for all of us Bearcat fans. More from Luke Fickle on why he rejected the Big Ten and big dollars. First Financial Biz Beat starts right now. Good afternoon and welcome to First Financial Biz Beat, presented by the Business Courier. I'm Kyla Woods. The building is still standing, the name is still at the top, so Macy's skipping town hasn't quite set in yet, but it will. On this week's front page centerpiece, Macy's says goodbye after decades of calling Cincinnati home. Macy's Cincinnati headquarters was largely symbolic, but having a Fortune 500 company in town brings prestige and a massive philanthropic footprint. Macy's charitable arm supports 72 groups around the city. And of course, it's not Christmas downtown without Macy's lighting up the square. Courier reporter Andy Brownfield has been on top of this story from the start. So we brought him back to talk about the future without Macy's with Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Did you see this coming? We talk a lot in the office about the future of Macy's because Amazon has really eaten into their business, but did you see this HQ closing coming?
You know, it's kind of hard to say because Macy's Cincinnati headquarters is kind of a vestigial arm of the company from back when it was federated since the 1920s. It moved here in 1945, and Cincinnati was it for federated until the 90s when it opened up in New York City, which makes sense for a fashion retailer. But then slowly over the decades, more and more of Macy's operations did move to New York, so it wasn't a complete surprise that they decided to close the Cincinnati headquarters. But it's still a bit of a shock.
Yeah, so there was some confusion when word got out that this was happening, though, correct?
There was. About 500 people are employed at that building downtown. And it wasn't immediately clear, and Macy's was not great at elucidating this, just what the impact was going to be of moving the headquarters. But, not all 500 of those jobs. In fact, a majority of them are going to stay. They're just going to move to Springdale, where Macy's already does have operations. The company is losing about 30 people from that headquarters. But it's actually a net gain for the Cincinnati region because Macy's is closing its Arizona call center and moving 600 jobs to Mason, where it has another call center.
Right. So, so the employment is kind of a wash. Obviously, some of the jobs will be different, but we're not losing hundreds of people. But Macy's is a Fortune 100 company. Cincinnati's also lost AK Steel and Cincinnati Bell in recent months. What does this mean for Cincinnati? And this is part of what your cover story is about. What does losing Macy's mean for Cincinnati, though?
You know, it's kind of murky because since Macy's is 118 on the Fortune 500 list, and that's no small potatoes. So. It does add kind of a feather in the city's cap to have had that headquarters, and it does, I don't want to say it gives us a black eye, but it certainly does hurt our ability to say, hey, look at all these Fortune 500s we have.
Right. That
being said, Cincinnati still kind of punches disproportionately above its weight in that realm. We do still have the headquarters to 6 Fortune 500 companies. Despite AK Steel and Cincinnati, or Macy's, no longer being headquartered here.
Right. So we'll just have to stay tuned and see kind of when, we don't know yet when they're going to close the HQ and when the workers from Arizona are going to come into town, but we'll be keeping an eye on that, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Back to you.
Thanks, Rob and Andy. A couple more local businesses are laying off hundreds of people. The Luxembourg company that bought TMK IBSCO is cutting 114 jobs at 2 Wilder plants. The company makes steel piping used for oil and natural gas. It says the dropping price of oil is creating lower demand for pipe. In Fairfield, Bear Down Logistics is shutting down its only local operation. That means all 105 employees are out of a job. The Illinois-based transportation company provides last-mile delivery services for Amazon. The port chooses who it wants to redevelop the Millennium Hotel, but it's not without controversy. The port is negotiating a contract with Turner Construction. They would demolish the hotel and build the replacement, but they did it without competitive bidding. And the head of the African American Chamber of Commerce is not pleased about it. Former state lawmaker Eric Kearney says the decision is unjust and unfair. He says the process wasn't transparent and wonders what would have happened if they'd opened it up. For its part, Turner says it will bring on a minority-owned partner. At least 100 people are affected by fraud at Fifth Third Bank at the hands of former employees. The Cincinnati-based bank says the now fired workers passed on stolen information like social security numbers, addresses, and account numbers. All the impacted customers have been notified and will have free access to fraud alert services for a year. Anyone who lost money will be reimbursed. We're getting a peek inside Ensemble Health's new headquarters. The fast-growing revenue cycle firm is moving into its new digs in Blue Ash this week. The 400,000 square foot facility has a daycare, cafeteria, fitness center, healthcare clinic, career training center, game room, and a Starbucks. The company designed the building to take care of its people.
Our goal is to, provide the overall best environment for our people to thrive. And whether that thriving comes through the development that they experience in their career, in terms of the education and understanding of the healthcare environment, or the thriving as it relates to their development and execution of driving services for our clients to produce better healthcare outcomes. Whatever it is, that's what we want.
And big news in the city. Luke Fickell likes it here so much, he's decided to stay a while.
Luke Fickell.
As you can see, that got the UC head football coach a loud ovation at the Bears basketball game on Thursday night. Fickell turned down a lucrative offer from Michigan State. The Spartans even flew here to meet with him. But in the end, one thing mattered more than anything else.
Family and the relationships that you've built. And I know this is, at some point in time, things always come to an end, whether they get rid of you, kids leave, there are all kinds of things. But the bottom line is, first and foremost, family. Obviously, my family loves it here. I got a unique situation with, with the age of my kids, but also the relationships you build.
Fickell is sticking with the best recruiting class in UC history. That includes 4-star quarterbacks and local kid Evan Prater, who laughed at reports that he too was headed to Michigan State. Prater responded to that on Twitter with, "Y'all goofy." Well, there's a new spot to catch a Reds game at Great American Ballpark. The Bourbon County Press Club is in the old press box behind home plate. This is a rendering of what it will look like. The Reds say corporations are shifting away from suites and the 12 to 16 tickets that come with them. In the Press Club, you can buy 2 to 4. Plus, the view is pretty awesome.
It's got a high-end bar and food experience, a buffet with chefs cooking in front of you, in-seat service. You'll have your own liquor locker if you have if you're one of the season ticket members up here, where you can keep your own bottle of bourbon or what have you stored here at the ballpark. But it's about an intimate, high-end experience in one of the greatest locations at Great American Ballpark to watch a game.
A ticket will cost you about as much as the Diamond Club, $4 grand for a 20-game ticket package. If that doesn't get you ready for the season, maybe this video of Joey Votto taking cuts at the batting cage in Goodyear will. Opening day is just 39 days away. Up next on First Financial Biz Beat, the former Cincinnati Bengal who always knew he would win an Oscar one day, and when the new nation will be serving up burgers in Westwood. Welcome back to First Financial Biz Beat. Well, congratulations to Charlie Vance. The CEO of Erigo Employer Solutions is another one of our 40 Under 40 honorees. Usually when Southwest Airlines gets into a market, fares fall. Well, that could have spelled trouble for Ultimate Air Shuttle. As the cost of flights to Chicago creeps back up, Ultimate Air has become more attractive to business travelers heading out of town for only a few days notice. Here's an example. A flight to Chicago that leaves Monday and gets back on Tuesday, booked just 4 days in advance, costs $550 on legacy carriers. It's $50 cheaper on Ultimate Air. And on top of that, Ultimate Air adding the region's only direct flight to Nashville. The last original tenant of Newport on the Levee is closing its doors, but it might not be gone forever. Dewey's Pizza opened at the Levee back in 2001. The new owners are investing $100 million in redevelopment, and they're in discussion with Dewey's to relocate within the Levee. Meantime, Westsiders will get to chow down on a Nation burger come July. That's when the restaurant plans on opening its much anticipated second location in the old Engine 35 Firehouse in Westwood. Nation, with its gourmet burgers and vast menu of craft beers, was one of the driving forces behind Pendleton's renaissance. And the Grater's on Fountain Square is now open again. The shop was closed for renovations and to expand into the former Savati spot several months ago. It's part of a major overhaul of Fifth Third's headquarters on the square, and the grand reopening was yesterday. Joining us for The Scoop this week is Christine Bunnell, brand manager with the B brand. She's with Retail Region President Ilaria Rollins in our downtown studio at First Financial Bank.
Thanks, Kyla. I'm excited today to have Christine Bunnell with the B brand here with us. I'd love to hear your story, so welcome.
Thank you.
And tell me a little bit about what got you started and what gave you the idea to start the B brand.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. So the B brand really is all about women being who they were born to be. That's where the B comes from. Because when we can be ourselves and we know who we are and what we want, we're so much more effective in our life. And I come out of the branding world, and brands, billion-dollar brands, use a very, very specific process to uncover their unique value proposition and leverage it. So what happens when women use the same process, right? So that's kind of the background of it. And then I started traveling across the U.S. to find personal development leaders, people like Tony Robbins, Mary Morrissey, Jack Canfield, Maria Forleo, and they use the exact same process that's used by billion-dollar brands, by agencies. And I thought, well, this is the process I want to use in coaching. So when I work with women, we get super clear on who they are, what they want, so they can create the life they really want, or it's personal and professional, or the kind of work that they want a lot more effectively so they can get there sooner rather than later.
I love that. I love being intentional and really what we're doing kind of every day to make our own impact.
Yeah,
so that's
thank
great.
you. Yeah.
You made a big leap by deciding to start your own business. What advice, now that you have that kind of initial start behind you, what advice do you have for future entrepreneurs?
Number one, get super clear on the what, not the how. A lot of times when I work with clients and they have a specific goal, they're like, how do I get there? Which is a question that everybody asks. But what you want to do is get extremely clear on the what. What does that look like? And the clearer you are, the higher chances of you getting there. The how will present itself. Martin Luther King used to say, just take the first step and then the staircase will reveal itself. But you've got to take that first action step towards the what first, and then the next step will reveal itself. So it's not the how, it's about the what first.
You chose Cincinnati as your home base. It's your home, but you also go national to take your business elsewhere. What do you see in other parts of the country that makes Cincinnati unique?
Well, what I think is Cincinnati, because it's in the Midwest, I think we've got family values here. We're hard workers. I think there's this conservative nature about Cincinnati that makes it super successful. On the West Coast, and when I traveled to Arizona and Texas to work with these different personal development leaders, coaching and being really vulnerable and going after what you want is so much more supported. I think here in Cincinnati, it's still a new up-and-coming thing. I mean, some people have heard of coaches, some people haven't heard of coaches. So it's interesting, but you go out west, and it's a lot more prevalent.
You have worked with individuals and companies from large, familiar brands, Fortune 500 companies. What are some common themes you've seen when they're working through change management?
Well, typically I have been brought on when when they're not getting the results that they want. So I'm not typically hired just to create a new brand. I'm hired because they don't know how to move forward. So the first thing we do, again, I'm sounding like a little bit like a broken record, but I help them get very, very clear on their what. And typically when I rebrand, I also help them restructure their company so that they can change their trajectory and move towards their new vision. But it takes time, and it takes really being dedicated to that what. And it's no different with companies as with people. It's just like when you work out and you want to lose 10 pounds, right? We've all done it, but it's willpower. Right. But what happens after 6 months is you go back to those old habits, right? So what you want to learn how to do, it's a mindset change. It's about changing the thermostat, right? So, and it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes taking your focus off of what you don't want and putting it onto what you do want. And oftentimes it's mental gymnastics, because we're so used to focusing on what's not working and what we don't want that we really have to be deliberate about focusing on what our vision is and how to go after that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time today.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Kyla, back to you.
Thank you, ladies. Well, still to come on the First Financial Biz Beat, the local connections to the Oscars. And we're talking beer with the executive director of the OTR Brewing District. Watson runs things at one of those massive accounting firms. She took over as head of PricewaterhouseCoopers' Cincinnati office last year. She says the biggest challenge is evolving as the profession does. That's why PwC is investing $3 billion in its people.
And upskilling our people through technology, through tools, and really just getting each of us where we have to evolve to be in the digital world and the skills that we need to serve our clients.
Watson started working in Cincinnati a year ago, but she still lives outside of Lexington with her husband and 3 kids. A former Bengals wide receiver won an Oscar last week. It turns out we should have known it was going to happen. Matthew Cherry predicted in 2012 he'd one day hold the golden statue.
And the Oscar goes to Hair Love, Matthew A. Cherry and Karen Rupert Tolliver.
8 years later, it happened. Cherry's Hair Love won Best Animated Short Film. It shows a black father trying to style his daughter's hair for the first time, and he dedicated the award to Kobe Bryant, who won the same category 2 years ago. Another Ohio connection, the Best Documentary Oscar winner, American Factory, is about a Chinese glass company moving into the old GM plant and the resulting clash of cultures. The directors, Stephen Bognar and Julia Reichert, both taught at Wright State. Well, you can't talk Cincinnati without talking beer, and no one knows that better than Stephen Hampton. He's the executive director of the Over the Rhine Brewery District. He's on set with Courier reporter Andy Brownfield. Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for being with us, Steve.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Bachfest is coming up. Why don't you tell me a bit about what's new this year at Bachfest?
Yeah, so Bachfest this year, there's a lot of your old favorites with the parade and of course plenty of Bach beer. What we're really excited about this year is just the sheer number of local Bach beers we have. We have over 24 local Bach beers, which, you know, just a handful of years ago, we didn't even have 24 local breweries. And the fact that they're brewing Bach beers, which is a seasonal beer, it takes a little bit longer in the tank, so it's really great to see so many of these local breweries bring out their own take on the Bach beer. And we just have a lot of, again, your favorites, great food, great music. We have the return of the .05K on Sunday, which is 164 feet. If you can make that race, you get your medal and your t-shirt just like everybody else. We're really growing the history and culture series on Sunday as well. And we've added some more goats this year. We got a petting zoo on Sunday as well, along with some goat yoga.
You know, that race sounds like something even I could handle. So tell me, how did the goat become the symbol of Bachfest?
So Bach beer traces its origin back to Germany. It was originally brewed for the Lenten fasting season by German monks, and it was originally brewed near the town of Einbeck, Germany. And kind of the literal translation of Bach, it kind of got moved into Bach, and Bach is a German word for goat. And so ever since, that's been the symbol of Bach beer ever since those early days.
Now, what makes the Bach style of beer special and unique, and How did it come to represent this Lenten season?
Right, so as I mentioned, it was originally brewed for that season, and they brewed it to be a really hearty beer. So it's a lager, but it's typically very malty. It's typically a little higher alcohol, and when they were only drinking that beer during their Lenten fasting season, that's what nourished them. So that liquid bread. And so they had to brew it, ahead of time. Lager beer takes a little bit longer, and so it's very much always that seasonal beer. They tend to be a little heartier, just like any beer. There's a lot of variations on the style, but your traditional box and doppelbox tend to be malty and hearty, and typically a little darker, really good on a colder, moving into spring day.
Yeah, perfect for this season. So there are a lot of traditions associated with Bachfest. Why don't you tell me about some of them and what's going to be crowning this year's Sausage Queen?
Yeah, so that's one of our fun traditions. So for years, Marge, who was the director of the Overland Foundation, led the parade with a tray of sausage. When she retired, we didn't have anybody to take over that. So we came up with the Sausage Queen competition, a gender-neutral competition to crown a new queen each year that then leads the parade the following year. It's turned into a great, kind of a newer tradition. We've been doing that for about 12 years now, and we go around there's usually 6 or 7 different preliminary rounds at local bars. There's a talent competition. There's, why you should be Sausage Queen. And those finalists go to Bachfest Hall for the final, and it's just, a ridiculous kind of pageant that we put on. So, but we also have a little more traditional things. We always have a big Trojan goat that was created years ago that leads the parade. We have a real goat pulling the keg of beer. And we always have one of our local neighbors, one of the monks at the Franciscan Friary next door, actually blesses the beer each year to start the festival properly.
All right. Well, can't wait to see how it shakes out this year. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Kyla, back to you.
Thank you. So many fun activities. I'll be inquiring more about goat yoga, so I'll talk to Steve about that. Stay tuned. Well, thanks for joining us for First Financial Biz Beat. A heads up, next week you can catch us at 11:30 a.m. on Star 64. For business news around the clock, visit thebusinesscourier.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and make sure you sign up for our daily emails. I'm Kyla Woods. I hope you have a great weekend.